From the city of broad shoulders, this is Chicago Unscripted. I'm Bill Curtis. Here's your host, CBS News Chicago's Joe Donlin, who enjoys 3 fingers of Glenlivet with a little bit of pepper and some cheese.
Eric Stonestreet is best known for his role as Cameron Tucker in the smash ABC hit Modern Family. But you're about to hear him break character for a fun conversation that covers a lot of ground. Before we started the episode, Eric said something I wanted to share because it kind of pulls the curtain back on the booking process. It's a lot like fishing. You never know who's going to bite, especially when you're going after big names. I can only imagine all the things Eric gets asked to do. But here's what he said unsolicited about deciding to join me.
I said yes to you because I have an affinity for Chicago, and I like that anyone knows enough about me to know that I started in Chicago. So my start is there, and finding the confidence to even be remotely ready to get a job 13 years later started there in Chicago.
I loved hearing that because it really is the backbone of what this project is all about. How much people just love talking about their connection to Chicago. And you're about to hear that from Eric in this conversation. As soon as we started recording, Eric saw the city skyline behind me and had some questions about my location, like trying to figure out exactly where I was. Now, I do use video from our conversations on my Instagram page, but the pod is audio only, so you're going to have to visualize this, but I wanted to include it because it's how we kicked off the conversation.
Okay, can you lean to the left or to right? Okay. Okay.
You should know what this. You should know what this building is.
Yeah, I do. Okay, so wait, you're looking. That's looking north then.
Yes, north is that way.
Yeah,
the lake is that way.
Yep. Okay, so then you're in the Loop.
No, north of there. Now you've got a better shot. You should know.
That's the John Hancock there.
Bingo. Yep.
Top of the cock.
Streeterville. Hadn't heard that before, but all right. We talk about Eric's recent wedding, his appearance in Dexter Resurrection, how he got from Kansas State to Chicago, and how a connection in Manhattan, Kansas led to a meeting with Del Close, one of the founders at the legendary I.O. Improv Theater here. Eric has a lot to say about his time in Chicago, how improv changed his life, the breaks that came his way, his experience, and in the end, struggles at the end of his time at Second City, even though Tina Fey was one of his teachers. What he learned from what he calls the incredible roster of comedic talent in Chicago, why Saturday Night Live was never one of his goals, plus the audition for Modern Family, the story of how he ultimately landed the role, and how he handled the pitfalls of playing a gay character as a straight man. And finally, the 2 places you might find him when he's back in Chicago. I asked him for 30 minutes, but he kept telling stories, and I wasn't about to stop him. Here's Eric Stonestreet. Eric, thanks for the time. It's so great to have you on. How are you?
Very good, very good.
You've been busy, I know. In fact, I reached out, and the next day my wife said, "Did you see he just got married?" And I hadn't. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's we had gotten engaged about 4 years ago, and then we started the very beginning process of planning a wedding, and then a piece of property here in Kansas City came available, and we were lucky enough to get it. And I said to Lindsay, "Would you rather do a wedding or build a house?" And she rightfully and understandably said, "Let's build a house," which just shows you why she's such a great gal. So we knew we were building a house to host a wedding, and we got married right when the house was done between our birthdays.
Yeah, so I'm thinking you're going to be busy for a little while, and then your folks wrote back and said, "How about next week?" Did you even go on a honeymoon?
No, we've been on a honeymoon for the last 8 years, man. I mean, every day with me is a honeymoon. She'll just ask her. No, we'll do something like that. Nothing about our relationship has been traditional, and we love that about our relationship and ourselves, that we're both very comfortable with each other, and she knows that we've been really truly focused on building this house for the last 2 years, and we didn't want to wait another year to get married, and we knew we wanted to get married on the 8th of September. So it was now or never. So we surprised our family. They came over. They thought they were coming over for a family picture at the new house and a dinner, but they actually came over for the wedding.
Yeah, so I've been on the Missouri side. What is it about Kansas City, Kansas that's different? It's your hometown.
Well, I am on the Missouri side now. I never thought
okay.
I'd be a Missourian, but I am a Missourian. On Modern Family, Cam was from Missouri, and I specifically wanted him to be from Missouri and not from Kansas because I wanted to make fun of Missouri and not make fun of Kansas. So now I guess somebody in the stars got even with me because now I'm a Missourian. But yeah, I'm from the Kansas side and went to Kansas State.
Yeah.
But it's a great city. It's been fun to be back here since 20, I guess, right when COVID started is when I came back home.
Why did you decide to do that, Eric, and not live in LA?
Well, a few things made it very simple. Lindsay had been commuting back and forth from Kansas City for 3 years, every other week, because she has two boys. We have two boys now. I'm their stepdad, I guess you would say. But she would commute every other week. And then COVID happened, Modern Family ended, and my dad's leukemia was progressing enough that it just made sense for me to come back home, retether myself here, and give Lindsay a break from traveling. And nothing was going on in LA, and it's kind of been that way ever since. So it just made it easy. Great time.
I saw you on Dexter Resurrection, and that's when I said, okay, I need to reach out and get him on. What was it like playing a serial killer in Dexter Resurrection?
Well, I just was excited to say yes to those guys. I'd been a fan of that franchise for a long time, and I'd actually auditioned for Dexter many, many years ago before Modern Family when I was just a grunt working actor. So it was an immediate yes to do that because they thought of me that way, and it's flattering. I'm flattered that somebody saw outside of the box that Hollywood wants to paint you in. So immediately it gets my attention that they're thinking creatively like that. And then when you add that I get to work with Michael C. Hall and Uma Thurman and Peter Dinklage and all those people, it just made it an immediate yes. But at my point in my career, what the answer to that question is about the environment that you're working in. It goes without saying, I wouldn't have said yes to it if it wasn't creatively stimulating. Then it becomes about like, well, do I like the people? Because I like where I'm at in Kansas City. I like my house. I like my wife. I like the kids that are living in my house. I like everything about where I'm at. So it's going to take something to get me out of that environment. Well, the something extra is the quality of people that I get to go be with. And it was great.
Yeah, the cast is amazing. So they came to you to do this?
Oh, yeah. They had sent a message just like you about coming on your podcast. But they said, would you be interested in talking about coming on Dexter? It's
a little bigger issue, Dexter.
Yeah. Here's kind of the idea of the role that we're thinking of him for. And, it always starts with, do you want to talk about it? Like, right. And I always have the personal line for me is if I'm not interested, I don't feel like getting on a phone call is the right thing to do. Now, sometimes agents and managers will be like, no, we really want you to, but I'm a man of my word. Right. And I know that once I get face to face with people and, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. But if I don't have the initial instinct to want to do it, I feel like then it's kind of wasting everyone's time. Well, when they ask if I wanted to think about Dexter, I'm like, of course, yes.
Mm-hmm. It's a great place to be in as an actor too, for you, I'm sure, to be able to pick and choose your roles.
Yeah, well, yes, it is. And hopefully that will stay the case. You got to stay relevant, right? You got to remind people. I'm just, again, living in Kansas City, flattered and thankful, grateful that people think of me and find me where I'm at, which is awesome.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. You touched on it. I don't feel like, and you tell me, that there's the concern anymore in Hollywood about getting locked into a role. People always seeing you as Cam from Modern Family. I mean, Ed O'Neill could have made that same argument. People thought he would always think of him as Al Bundy. But it seems like today there's so much more content and so many more opportunities that people don't put you in that box anymore. Do you agree?
Well, to a point. I mean, look, everyone's kind of lazy at their job, no matter what their job is, right? You get into your job and you just want it to kind of come easy. And so having said that, casting directors, not all of them are thinking outside the box. The good ones do, right? The ones that are like, oh, I saw him in a play in 1999 and he was phenomenal. Or I saw him on an episode of Nip Tuck before he was famous on Modern Family. So you hope that those people, but I always tell people, you can't count on other people being as good at their job as you want to be at yours, right? Like I wanted to be really good at my job, but that's not enough. I need other people to be good at their job. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for people, but I think to answer your question, it's easy to keep people in a box, and the really good ones are the ones that don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a huge fan of Dexter, and I saw you as absolutely credible and believable. And I don't know how in the role of Dexter, Rapunzel, I guess I should say, is your role. But I'm wondering about spoilers. Are you okay? Am I all right to say, that you survived Dexter, which not all, at least for now anyway, which not all serial killers can say?
Yeah, I'm headed back to Racine, Wisconsin, on my way back up to Racine to get a concrete somewhere, probably. I think it was I think they said in 19 years, I was maybe the first. I asked that question on the set, maybe one of the first days, to Michael. I said, how many, people get away from you? And it stumped him. He's like, I don't know that anyone has.
Yeah. When you read the script, did you think, am I going to end up on Dexter's table?
Well, no, part of the meeting was, look, here's the role. This is the kind of the arc of the character, because they want to tempt you with as much as they have. Well, one of the things they want to tempt you with is like, you get away in the end. Does that sound interesting to you? So, it's a tease of like, will my character Al be back next year?
Right.
Next year, all that kind of stuff. So, we'll see.
How have things changed in the business, Eric, as far as streaming in particular? Dexter is available on streaming. A lot of the platforms are putting their best stuff on the stream. I don't know. Do you think Modern Family would have made it to the network, or would it have gone right to the stream because they know people are paying for it?
Well, I think Modern Family is an institution. I mean, I get to say that, even having been on it, and I truly feel like it was kind of the last of its class, right? Meaning there's not been really anything that got the critical acclaim and the viewership both, which is rare. Usually it's one or the other. And we got the critical acclaim and we got the viewership, which is amazing. I would tend to think that if Modern Family or something like it, as good as it happened now, that networks would still want to put that on network television. I think network television still is something. I'm hoping that linear TV makes a comeback, and that there is a version of families sitting down on a Tuesday or Wednesday night and watching a TV show as a family. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I just said to Lindsay last night, I was sitting in the room where I watch TV here in the house, and I'm like, I just realized Reed and Everett have not been in here in this room in the 3 weeks that we've been here watching TV with me, because they have their little space upstairs where they watch TV, and not that they're not invited there. My point there is families have changed, right? Kids are on this all the time and playing games. They don't even have lockers at school anymore, which blew my mind. When we went to it's like, well, why don't you have lockers? It's like, well, we don't have books. It's like, we don't have books. Like,
wow.
What? Think about that. Nobody's getting stuff in lockers anymore. Like, because nobody has lockers. My point is that the families have changed, the dynamics have changed. So it's going to take a lot for people to get a group of people together and watch something on a 55-inch TV versus everybody in their own space watching it on their own phone.
Wow, that's really eye-opening. I mean, our oldest is 32. Eric, tell me what it's like to have 13-year-olds.
It's awesome. I mean, Lindsay would tell you she has three boys. I refuse to grow up, which is part of, I think, what made me successful in my business and career. But it's awesome. I enjoy living life through the eyes of a 13-year-old. I love experiencing things as they experience them, and I love really opening their minds and eyes to things that come into my world. Meeting people, they got to hang out with Michael Bublé and Reba McEntire and Snoop Dogg on the set of The Voice, and meet Niall Horan, So I just make sure that they know that those are special moments, and that not everybody gets to do that, and that they need to be humble and appreciative of everything that comes into their world because of what's happened in my life.
Yeah, that's great. Let's go back to how all this started, Eric. You're a Kansas State alum, but you majored in sociology, if I have this right. Now, what was the plan?
The plan was I was dating a girl that I'd gone to high school with and junior college with for 1 year. And then the plan was, I thought I'd get married and have a minivan and a white picket fence and live in Terre Haute, Indiana, and be a level 5 junior prison administrator. Like I wanted to be a warden at penitentiary. And that's the path I was going down. And my dad owned a business in Leavenworth, Kansas, which, all your viewers and listeners know the term Leavenworth. You're going to Leavenworth. Well, it's a prison town. There's like 4 different prisons there. And so they were the kind of the tapestry of the backdrop of me growing up. I was like, wow, that's interesting. I want to go in there. It's like, well, Dad, it's like not for the wrong reasons. So when I found out you could get a degree in something that would allow me to work in a prison, that's what I did. I didn't want to go to college, but my parents didn't give me a choice and said, you're going to college and find something that's interesting. And sociology was it. And I would have had connections even too, because my dad's business being in Leavenworth, I would have known people that would have gotten me a little bit of a leg up.
So then you found your way into acting, right? I mean, you took a role on a lark? Was that what it was?
Well, the girl that I was dating broke up with me. I was very sad and distraught, as we all are, in that moment. And then my best friend, Paul, who's from Whitewater, Kansas, and still my best friend, he lives in Los Angeles as well. He was like, you wanted to be a clown when you were a kid. Did you ever do like forensics or anything like that? And I'm like, no. He's like, you should audition for a play. I'll do it if you do it. So we each learned a monologue from Hamlet, and then we went and did cold reading, and we auditioned for 2 plays, Prelude to a Kiss and Hamlet. And I prepared a Claudius monologue to do, and then I thought I was great. And then he said, okay, grab the book there on the stage, and we'll do some cold reading. And I was like, I'm sorry, do what now? What is cold reading? She's like, oh, we're just going to read a few scenes from Hamlet. And I'm like, okay. I'd been working on this monologue for weeks, getting it to sound right in my head, Now all of a sudden I have to make the cold reading sound good. Well, I didn't get cast in Hamlet, but I did get cast in Prelude to a Kiss in the smallest part, the Ned Beatty part from the movie Uncle Fred. And people said I was good. I mean, and people, said, hey, good job. And then the director who didn't cast me in Hamlet, she's like, you should come and audition for a play I'm doing next fall called All My Sons, play by Arthur Miller. I went and did it, and I got cast as the lead, Joe Keller. So here I am, a 22-year-old kid playing a 75-year-old factory owner from World War II. And then after that, it's not easy to say it. People said like, hey, you're great. And I was dumb enough, if you will, but also wide-eyed enough to believe them that people in Manhattan, Kansas, like knew good when they saw it. Right. And then my high school counselor, Al Ogden, who used to be a counselor at Oak Park River Forest High School. He was my high school counselor. He really opened my eyes to Chicago in high school and the beauty of the city. He was a Gray Line tour guide there for many years. And I thought, well, I could go try to be an actor in Chicago. So I left. Once I finished college, I moved to Chicago in 1996.
So did you take any acting classes, or did you get your sociology degree?
I finished my degree in sociology with an emphasis in criminal justice. And then I spent 1 extra year in college where I was just taking theater classes. So I don't have a degree in theater or anything.
Right.
My classes were more about like, just different things. And then I took that year to do another play to get some more experience. And then also just read as much as I can about business. Took a trip to Chicago to kind of like lay out where I was going to land and what I was going to do and who I was going to meet and try to get in. So I took that year to plan my move.
I mean, that's a big step. It's a huge step. So tell me about it. Where did you land? Where were you living when you were here? So this is this is late 90s, right? What was it like?
96, spring of 96. 630 West Addison was my apartment there right above the White Hen Pantry. It used to be a White Hen Pantry and just up the street from the Jewel.
Yeah.
I didn't know I moved to Boys Town. My dad came up with me to find my apartment and, talking to them afterwards, my mom like hated my first apartment because she thought it was dark. It was in one of those, U-shaped buildings, and I was a corner unit.
Right.
I only had one window in the front, and then one window in the kitchen, and maybe a window in the in the bathroom, and she, years later, she says, "Oh, I hated that apartment. It was so dark. I was so sad to leave you there." And I'm like, "I love that apartment," you know? But I didn't know I moved to Boys Town until one day I called my parents and I'm like, "Hey, I live in Boys Town." And they're like, "What's Boys Town?" I'm like, "Well, the gay part of town." And they're like, "Well, how do you know that?" And I said, "Oh, the gay pride parade just came by my apartment."
It's still a huge deal. Oh,
yeah, of course.
We have a float every year in that, and it's so much fun. So what were you doing at that point? Did you get into the IO or the Second City was after the IO, right? Tell me about how it all started.
Kind of simultaneously. So crazy small world of events. When I was leaving to come to Chicago, the people that owned the Hallmark store in Manhattan, Kansas, who were family friends of ours, said, "Eric, we understand you're moving to Chicago." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, we have an old high school friend that has a theater there." And I said, "What? Who?" And she goes, "Oh, a guy named Del Close." And I said, "I'm sorry, Del Close, what?" And she's like, "Yeah, we went to high school here in Manhattan, Kansas." I had no idea Del Close was from Manhattan, Kansas. I had no idea that Taylors knew Del Close. I had just read Truth and Comedy in my improv class that he and Sharna had written. So I immediately knew who that was. And she said, "Well, we'll call him and tell him you're coming to town." And I'm like, "Okay." And so they did. They said, "Del, we have a good friend who's a great kid and he's moving to Chicago," and passed on his number. And when I landed in Chicago, I waited a little while and I called Del and left a message. And he called back and left a message back with me saying, give him a call back. And then I called and left him another message. And then he called me back and left me this message, which was, "Yes, Eric, Del Close, phone tag, you're it for good."
Oh.
And so then it was basically telling me up to me to get a hold of Del. And we had lunch at the Salt and Pepper Diner. He wrote a little piece of paper that allowed me to come into any class, audit any show, any class that I wanted to see. And that's because I got there at a time when classes had already started. So I would have to wait another, 6 or 8 weeks. But I just started hanging out at the IO, getting to know people. And then I enrolled at the conservatory at Second City. So I was doing that at the same time.
What was this your first experience with improv? Had you done any of it? You'd had your roles before, but this is different, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I took improv in college. That was it. And then I had a creative dramatics class, which was, sort of improv. But yeah, nothing to this level. It was and I'd read Truth and Comedy, so I understood what the principle of the Herald was and all that kind of thing. And I knew how Second City worked as far as creating sketches through improv and all the pipeline to the Saturday Night Live and all that. So I had certainly had an understanding of the world, but had not done it with other like-minded people, right? I'd never improvised with a group of people.
Right. I mean, you as a comedy actor strike everyone as just sort of effortlessly funny. Is improv something anyone can do? I mean, can they really teach you how to do this better?
Well, I think Del's principle always, especially at the end of his life, was it's not teaching you to do improv. It's teaching you to not get in your head and stop yourself naturally from doing improv. We improvise every day in our life, right? We're improvising right now. I don't know what you're going to ask me. And then I have to come up with the answer. And then the whole truth in comedy comes. Well, truth really is helpful. Like when you just speak about the truth, that's good for conversation. So,
but that's different than being funny, isn't it?
Well, but he believed that you didn't try to be funny. Like the humor came from real life and the real life circumstances and situations we find ourselves in all the time. It's really about opening your eyes to realizing what's funny. So the funny doesn't necessarily isn't something that comes out. It's something that you're observing and then you can kind of relate. So
yeah.
Sure, I'm maybe selling myself short, and probably everyone in my situation would, as far as like, why am I funny? I have no idea why I'm funny. All I know in that world, in improv, the way you can be the most successful being funny is not trying to be funny, like just having real reactions to situations.
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting because sometimes on the set during the news, there will be a moment, and sometimes the line comes to me, and sometimes the line comes to me when we go to commercial break.
Well,
I missed it.
Yeah, but you know what? That's so interesting you say that, because I would always tell people that the difference between a good improviser and a great improviser is a great improviser thinks of it in the moment. A good improviser thinks of it on the walk back to your apartment.
Yeah, that's me. Although I don't know that I would even consider myself a good improviser. So like I said, sometimes the line is perfect and it's just waiting for you.
Yes. But when you go to a good improv show, what you're reacting to, like TJ Jagodowski and Brian, I can't think of his name right now. They do a show there in Chicago. And I was in level 1 with TJ at IO. We go way, way back. But those masterful improvisers that are so good, what you're watching them do a lot of times is what you're reacting to is what they're not doing. Meaning, right? They're not doing something hacky, so they're showing restraint. And then what you're reacting to is their mind and the quickness of their mind.
Right. Mm.
And so it's kind of that thing like when you watch Michael Jordan do a fadeaway 3-pointer, you're like, wow, I actually kind of think I could do that. And then you go try it and you're like, oh, no, this is really hard to do. And so good improvisers just make it look effortless. And those guys.
Well, most of us have been to the show where they ask you for a prompt, right?
Dave Pasquesi. It's TJ Jagodowski and Dave Pasquesi.
Okay, right.
People will know what their show is. They're legendary guys and so talented and such good improvisers. But yeah, they ask for just a jumping off point, typically in an improv show.
And where do you go from there? As I understand, the trick is yes and. Is that's the trick?
Well, yes and is important in the beginning. But no but really becomes your friend if you're skilled and on stage with trusted people, right? If I went on stage with a beginning improviser and I said no, or they said no to me, it probably wouldn't go well. But, no works also when you're dealing with people that know how to navigate the no's and build a scene and build the dynamic and build the tension of a scene, right? Mm-hmm. So when you get a suggestion, typically you go kind of as far away from it as you can. And the goal I always looked at with improv was go out on stage, dig a hole, jump in the hole. And now how do I get out of this hole? Mm-hmm. That was my, sort of technique.
Wow. All right. So you're here, early 20s, late 90s, Chicago. You mentioned Jordan. What were you doing? What was fun in Chicago? How were you passing time?
Great story. I was at Navy Pier one time and registered. Remember Joe's Crab Shack down Clybourne, right there by the Creek Barrel outlet. So was at Navy Pier, and apparently I registered for like a party at Joe's Crab Shack. Well, my parents were in town, or family friends were in town or something, and I must have put my name and number in. One morning, the phone rings at 8:00 in the morning. Well, listen, I have no friends in Chicago. My parents aren't calling me at 8:00 in the morning. So this must be a wrong number or an emergency. So I answer, hello. It's like, is this Eric Stonestreet? Like, yes, it is. It's like, hey, this is so-and-so, Z99, whatever. You want to party for 60 of your friends at Joe's Crab Shack. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, you registered to win a party for you and 60 of your coworkers or friends at Joe's Crab Shack and you won. So we got to get you scheduled. And I'm like, I don't have any friends in It turned into the saddest phone call ever. It's like, what do you mean you don't have any friends? I'm like, well, I just moved here and I couldn't come up with one person to invite to the party at Joe's Crab Shack. Oh my God, you made me remember that moment. I totally forgot about that.
What happened?
I just yielded, call the next guy. The person who had 60 friends.
So how long were you here? How long were you here then? How long were you in Chicago?
I was only there 2 years, which I thought, I thought I was moving to Chicago to be a professional actor and live my life in Chicago. That's in my brain, because then you could still do that, right? I thought I'd move there, I'd get an agent, I'd do commercial work, I'd do the Goodman, I'd do Steppenwolf, maybe I'd be on the main stage at Second City someday and live on Greenview for the rest of my life, right? Mm-hmm. That's what my plan was. And then I got there and I found some success pretty early with commercials. And by success, meaning started building a tape, then was a tape. And again, that whole thing of people saying, hey, you're pretty good. And me believing it, like me thinking like, okay, well, they must know. Now I believed it a little bit more because, they say you can't compare yourself to others, but I always tell people you have to compare yourself to others at some point or you'll go crazy. because you have to do constant self-evaluation. Well, the only way you do self-evaluation is to see that guy's been doing it for 10 years and he's that good, and I've been doing it for 3 months and I'm this good. Like, okay, maybe I'm all right. So I went through the Second City Conservatory, and the trigger point for me to move was when I asked my teacher, John Hildreth, Second City alum, who was my level 5 teacher. I said, so was Kelly Leonard and all the producers at Second City at my level 5 show last night? Did they see me do my Bigfoot sketch? And he's like, no. Like, so, but whoever cast for Second City, they see our show? And he's like, I was like, so no one knows I'm coming through the pipeline. No one knows I exist at the Second City Conservatory that hires people. He's like, no. And so it was at that moment, I'm like, okay, well, I just went through that class. I had Tina Fey as a teacher. I had all these great people as teachers and learned so much. Saturday Night Live was never my goal.
I was going to ask you that. No,
I never wanted to be on Saturday Night Live. So it was at that moment I said, you know what? I'm going to move to Los Angeles, with the combination of people telling me I was okay and good, having evaluated myself against other people, seeing in acting classes that I could hold my own. Mm-hmm. And then knowing that year and a half that I'd spent like thinking I was getting someone's attention didn't work. I'm like, well, now I'm not just going to start over at the Second City and audition. Nothing wrong with that. That's the process, and that's what people do. But for me, it was like, well, I'm just going to start failing in Los Angeles then. I'm just going to go there and start taking my knocks on the chin.
Right. But what you went through here in Chicago and Second City especially must have prepared you well for what was ahead in LA.
Incredible. Like, incredible. I met so many people, and what's nuts about that, and what people don't, I think, do understand in Chicago is, and I get to call some of these people friends. I'll sit at a party and be like, I'm friends with some of the funniest people in the world. Like, I know some of the funniest people there are, and they all, for the most part, happen to be Chicago-born, raised improvisers. Like, it's just incredible that there are so many hilarious people. So what I learned in Chicago the most was A, how much I loved Italian beef, hot and wet, and B, how much talent exists in Chicago and in the lifeline and lifeblood of that city coming. Brian Stacks, Pat Finns, Pete Holney's, Mike Coleman's, all these people that are just wonderful improvisers that all grew up there. So what I learned is watching them and watching them perform and teaching me like, okay, have confidence. You can do this. So I said I moved there to get myself seasoned. And I certainly did that. I ate a lot of very well seasoned food while I was there.
I gained so much weight when I moved here, Eric. I've never been as heavy as I was. My wife looked at me and said, do you realize what's happening to you, don't you? And I said, yes, I'm enjoying the city a lot.
Yes. But, at least in Chicago, the difference between Chicago and LA is I could eat an Italian beef. I'd have to walk to get it and then walk home to get it. Mm-hmm. In LA, first of all, you can't find a good Italian beef, but whatever you do find, you have to drive to it and you have to drive home. So my legs were in such good shape from the 2 years that I lived in Chicago because I just enjoyed exploring the city and being alone, no friends. Would just walk everywhere I went. But yeah, I put on more weight when I moved to LA because all the walking left my life immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I read in People magazine about your sponsorship now with Eli Lilly and Manjaro, right?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because it sounded what I read that you didn't want to really admit it, I guess. It's interesting to me because several of my friends are now on these and they are openly talking about it now. And I talked to a doctor in my building here who said it's one of the most revolutionary drugs of our time.
Well, it is. Manjaro is amazing. I didn't, not that I wanted to talk about that I was on it. I just never wanted to tell anybody I had type 2 diabetes. I was embarrassed to tell people that. And that's the drug has helped me tremendously keep track of my A1C. I haven't experienced a ton of weight loss because of the drug, but the drug has motivated me to change my life and do better things and take better care of myself. And so I have lost some weight. but I would say it's just due to the fact that I'm paying more attention to my type 2 diabetes and not eating crap that I shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
In a bubble.
We haven't seen you on the commercials yet. I'm lowering my A1C.
Well, they're not going to be like that. I think we're going to shoot them in January. I'm not sure. But a friend of mine who has, again, that improv world in connection, because it's that community that I met him through, all those people from Chicago, because there was a huge migration, right? When I got to Chicago, of all these great actors and improvisers that then moved west to Chicago. And so I was kind of this next class. I was after them, before like Ike Barinholtz and I were coming through at the same time. Seth Meyers was right behind me. Jason Sudeikis was right behind me. But again, I wasn't there long enough to really get my traction in the community as much. So when I met people out in LA, they just kind of knew me as an actor who was friends with a lot of people. And then when they find out I have Chicago connections, they're like, "Oh, awesome. That's."
Yeah, I mean, the list is just amazing, no doubt. But on Saturday Night Live, with your improv background, I'm curious. I don't know whether you knew this, but I just flipped the TV on this morning before we started talking, and it's Phil Hartman's birthday today, and they played one of his bits. Your favorite SNL actor over the years would be who?
Well, there's a lot. There are a lot of people that no doubt inspired me as a youth. You know, Steve Martin's way up there as a kid. I have lots of memories of watching him on Saturday Night Live. And then, you know, it's hard to not say Chris because of the connection that I have to Chris, which is literally the same lineage, right? Improv Olympic, studying at the Second City. Del Close handpicked Chris Farley. You know, they asked Del to come direct a review at Second City, and he said, "I'll only direct it if I can pick my cast. And I'm starting my cast with this guy right here." And I missed Farley, obviously, performing. I'm very close friends with one of Chris's best friends. And of course, I know John and his other brother, Kevin. But it's hard for me not to say Chris for that connection, but also because of what Chris represents for comedians, which is this internal person with this external persona, right? I never got to meet Chris. I watched him perform one time at I.O., and I'll never forget him walking up those stairs and it literally looked like his body was expanding as he went and walked through that door. And then he was boom,
right.
Chris Farley. And I asked Del one time, I'm like, "What makes Farley Farley?" And he said, when Chris needed to fall down on a stage, he didn't just fall down on a stage. He fell down and into the audience and then up the ramp and then out the door and then down Clark. That's Chris Farley. Which the answer there is the commitment. So as a comedian, nobody more committed than Chris Farley.
Yeah, I went to Marquette with him.
So do you know Pat Finn?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, well, that's what I'm talking about. Pat Finn's a very close friend of mine, and I think he gave one of the eulogies at Chris's funeral.
Well, I remember those guys. I mean, they were legendary even on campus. And I played hockey for Marquette, and there was a game apparently where during the intermission in between periods, one of those guys put on a jockstrap, like what was the famous hockey slap shot?
Oh, yeah.
And literally skated around, got onto the ice during the intermission between periods and was skating around in a jockstrap with like an M on one butt cheek and a U on the other.
Yeah. I mean, the Chippendale sketch alone for a big guy, and somebody who, because when that happened, I don't know that I was necessarily on the track to be an actor. But just as a big guy, seeing someone with the ability to do that and make fun of themselves in that way next to Patrick Swayze, it's no doubt meaningful for me. But you know, Second City performer of all time is John Candy. John Candy is probably my favorite performer actor ever.
All right, let's move on to what everybody I'm sure always asks you about, and that's Modern Family. Just start with how that came to be for you, the audition process. Where were you in your life, and how did it work out?
Well, it was 2009. So I'd been in Chicago in Los Angeles since 1998. And I was an actor that I think people I look back and think like, oh, people probably would have like thought, oh, Stonestreet's got a good career. I'd take his career, meaning I was booking commercials, I was getting auditions, and I was getting the occasional co-star, guest star on TV shows, but I wasn't having this sort of like creatively stimulant like career, meaning I wasn't getting to build characters and like then play them for episodes.
Right.
So I had an agent, obviously, and was getting some traction, but not to the point where I was like getting to audition for everything in town. Well, my friend Matt Corboy, he came over and asked me for some help with an audition he was going on, which was called My American Family. And he was going in for the role of Cameron Tucker. And so I helped him with the audition. And then when he left, I said, hey, man, full transparency, I'm going to do everything I can to get in and read for this part. He's like, dude, you 100% should. So I got in, read for the part. They passed, meaning I didn't get passed on to the next step. Then a couple of weeks passed. They called back and said, we want to read him again, but tell him to shave and dress more appropriate, because I was one of those actors that I felt like my first role of an actor was to play that of an actor. And I always wanted to come off as like, I'm busy, man. Like, I have another audition. I don't have time to put on a chef's costume for you. Like, I don't have time to like, are they building the set here? Like, you can't use your imagination and get past it. I'm not wearing exactly the outfit you think. So I always kind of took that as my persona. And so when I first auditioned for Modern Family, I was just dressed how I dressed. And then they said, come back, dress differently and shave. Let me take a drink.
Sure.
Whiskey. So I went back, and again, they said, no, thank you. Not in an unkind, untoward way, but just like, that's probably, we don't think that's what we're looking for. Well, then another few days passed, and they said, you know what? They can't stop thinking about Eric's take on the character. They want to test him. So now it's getting real. So I go into 20th Century Fox, I test on like a Tuesday, and then I go to ABC, test on a Wednesday, and I think I tested at like 1:00 in the afternoon, and by 4:00 I had the job.
Wow. So you knew going in, obviously, this was a gay character, right? Okay. So how did you go into that as a straight man? I'm curious. This is really a fascinating element of this for me that I'd like to get into a little more.
Well, it goes back to your question about Dexter. How do you get in the mind of that? It's like, well, what's written on the page is what's written on the page. So I don't have to put any more mustard on that. It's written down that Cameron Tucker is a gay man. So now I have to build a character that supports this person as a human, right? My goal was to build a human who happens to be gay, because the writing's going to take care of whether Cameron is gay or not, right? Mm-hmm. So I just had to create a character that was believable, likable, lovable, dramatic, right? A lot of pitfalls to this character.
Right.
And people will read, oh, Cameron was over the top, nobody acts like that, or, this and that. It's like, usually I would say, take a look in the mirror to the people that are saying that a lot of times. And then also it's just so dismissive of all the people that I've met through the years that have said, oh my God, you're my uncle, or you're my partner, or you're my cousin, or you're me, or you're my mom. Meaning I wanted to create a character that was universal, that everyone could see something that they related to that happened to be gay. And, I'm not writing the scenes of whether I'm dramatic or not. Those are scripted scenes, and I have to play those scenes. My point is they wanted a character that wasn't too over the top, right? More passionate, more paternal, or more maternal of the two, and not over the top. That's what was written down on the page. Yet they create a scene where I deliver the baby to Lion King in a photo. So now you have that.
Yeah, wait a minute though, because then let's play that out. Because Jesse then says, "Just turn it off."
I can't turn it off. It's who I am.
The music.
Right? Yeah. No, the music. So my point is that's a pitfall. They're saying they want this, but they're writing this. So how do you create this believably without going over the top here? And I took the approach of, well, I'm going to kind of impersonate my mom. I'm going to play my mom in this audition, because my mom's passionate. My mom's not a caricature. She's a character. People love her. People get a kick out of her laugh, and people get a kick out of her and her, how she dresses in her jewel tones or whatever. But she's not like fake and not believably real. So that's sort of my guide. Those were my guideposts right from the beginning. It's like, okay, well, how would my mom react to this?
So what did you hear from the gay community? Was that where the pushback came from? I mean, because you run into stereotypes, and when you have a straight person playing a gay person, that this could get dicey, right?
Well, it wasn't that way then. I mean, there wasn't such a big emphasis on it. You know, there's a tried and true process of casting in Los Angeles. And look, everybody deserves every audition they can get. It's about opportunity, right? Producers, writers, creators have the right to cast whomever they want in the role that they see the best fit for. What people really need to talk about is making sure that everyone's represented in that audition room. Everyone has a shot at it. Well, everyone? Nothing would ever get made if everybody that moves to Los Angeles that has an agent or that thinks they should audition for something got that opportunity. So it's impossible for everyone to get the chance. It just means that it needs to be representative of the community, right? Well, I can assure you that everyone of all colors, creeds, sexualities read for Cameron Tucker. There was no, we're not seeing this kind of person, we're not seeing that kind of person. Everyone came in that was at the level to get to come in for those auditions. And they chose me, which is crazy. I still can't believe it, but there wasn't much pushback. Jesse, you know, obviously he's gay, and he told me from the beginning, he's like, you know, you're not going to make everyone happy. We're not going to make everyone happy, and you need to prepare for that, because he knows how much I care. He certainly quickly saw how much I took on the role of advocate, right? And friend and ally, as they call it. And I told him, I'm like, if I ever hear anyone slur you, like, I'm like, you don't know guys like me, I will punch them in the face. Like, calm down, feisty bear, calm down, feisty bear. But like, I took it very serious. Like, here I am representing this community, and I'm not going to allow someone to be mean to Jesse or be mean to me. Like, we didn't experience that for the most part. Were there people that said, you know, you're over the top or stereotypical? Sure. I just always...
To me, though, that's what made it so funny. I mean, the more flamboyant almost, the funnier it was to me.
Well, yeah, sure. That's what's great about TV and movies is in art. You get to watch it and pull what you want from it. And it's like these people that are like, oh my God, it's over the top or this and that. It's like, have you written a TV show? Have you created tension and drama in a comedy? Because everybody thinks it's just supposed to be funny. There's not supposed to be, like, people would say, oh, Mitch and Cam, they argue all the time or whatever. It's like, again, going back to that improv thing, it's like, agreement is fine to learn it, but you can't have realistic life scenes if it's always agreement. You have to find the tension in the moment. So look, I just fell back on, I'm the immediate interaction, right? I'm the immediate, what do they call it? Feedback. I'm on the street, and I can only go by what people tell me. And when I have someone coming up to me and saying, you made it easier for me to come out to my mom, you made it easier for me to accept my friend, and all these very meaningful, sweet compliments, I just chose to believe and listen to those, and not the very, very few people that said, oh, Cameron Tucker's over the top and a stereotype. It's like, maybe because you're not friends with someone like Cameron Tucker, or maybe because you don't have an uncle or an aunt or a friend, anybody like Cameron Tucker, you don't think they exist. But I'm here to tell you, I live the life as the actor who plays Cameron Tucker, and people tell me all the time, thank you for representing me on TV.
Yeah, that's a powerful story. A couple more lines from Modern Family that you remember that are special to you. And obviously, if you remember the line about the Lion King, I'm sure you remember a few others. And that was the beauty, too, of how Modern Family was shot. What do they call it? Like documentary style?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was really about that. You know, it was a Dutch documentary crew following this American family, and it was called My American Family, and then they changed it to Modern Family. But we kind of went away from that a little bit. If you watch that first season, you see a lot of dirty shots where the camera's kind of peering around the corner, capturing these moments. There's a lot of takes to the camera, and that all kind of faded away. But the device of us talking to camera is really what allowed them to tell such great stories and so many stories, because there was a B, and C story every episode. Servicing 10 characters in 22 minutes. That's ridiculous. And those interviews of us talking to the camera really helped propel the action.
Yeah. Who was the best at that?
Writing?
No, delivering the line.
Oh, well, all of us. Look, there's just no possible way you have the feeling you have about Modern Family, or anyone that's watching has the feeling about Modern Family, if every one of those actors on that show wasn't great.
Yeah.
And also, I would dare say, nice people, because it's a family show. There was never drama on our set. There was never anything going on. Maybe Sophia took a little longer in hair and makeup than some of us did. That's about it. Like, that was the drama. We never had anything bad happen. Nobody ever refused to come out of their trailer, because that's the tone that was set with Chris and Steve from the beginning. They're top shelf. Steve Levitan, there's a guy for your podcast. Yeah. Evanston, Illinois, Northwestern. Oh, no, he went to Wisconsin, but he's from Evanston.
Okay.
Anyway, the tone they set, because being top shelf guys, is like, look, we know how to make shows last a long time, and here's some of the blueprint. And having Ed O'Neill as number one on the call sheet, Ed always said, the best thing about being number one on the call sheet is you don't have to deal with the asshole who's number one on the call sheet. And so Ed was awesome, set the tone, and then we all just followed in, and just delivered great work, I think.
All right, so a favorite line that you loved to deliver. I'm sure you remember one or two of them. And I'll prompt you on one if you can.
Prompt me on some of them.
Okay, when you're dressed up as George Washington in the history class, and you're talking about native.
About beaver, something about beaver trading.
That's part of it, yeah. But then you said you were describing Native Americans, a majestic people who lived off the land and cried when they saw litter.
Oh yes, yes. That's the famous commercial from the 70s.
How do you deliver that line without cracking?
Well, it goes back to what I'm talking about there with improv, right? You say, how do you be funny? How do you be funny? Well, you be funny by not being funny, right? You have to trust that there's funny in your bones. And then when you combine that with the Emmy Award winning and top-notch writing that you have, you can't, as I say, put more mustard on stuff. The mustard's already there, right? So you just have to do it in a way that makes it believable. And those lines were perfect examples of it, because you have to think of it. The character doesn't think he's being funny, right?
Yeah.
Now, there might be a scene where Cameron pretends he's being funny. Well, that's a different method of acting. But when I'm just delivering a line, I'm delivering it sincere and serious, because I'm not trying to be funny.
Well, that's because you're funny. That's the thing. Like, you've forgotten more funny things, I'm sure, than I've ever said, So for me to be given a line like that and deliver it without laughing would be really hard.
Well, the other thing that happens on a show when you're on for 11 years is you quickly learn that you're not as funny as you think you are, and the crew wants to go home.
That's good advice. So the Stella episode is another one that's sort of legendary. Is that something you can hop into on demand, like right now, if you were going to give me that line after you were looking for Gloria's dog?
Oh my God. You mean just the Stella, the Stella?
Sure. Or if you need a line to get into it, let's go.
Well, no, I do get asked that all the time. I get asked to, people will say, scream Stella for me, or scream Lily. Stella! Yeah. Oh my God. That's a great meme. No, but I find myself in the role I was born to play. Don't I say something like that?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's great.
And you call Jesse and you say, I'm in a white t-shirt and I'm
yes. Oh my God. There's another great scene where I'm saying, can you a little bit louder now? Shout. No, a little bit louder now. Shout. Hey, 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 hey. But the writers were so good at creating those moments. Were so fun. You just made me think of a funny, my knee just locked up on me. You just made me think of a good story. Oh, I met Eddie Van Halen once. He was on Ellen. Van Halen was getting back together and they were performing on Ellen, and I had gotten to be kind of friends with his son, Wolf Van Halen, and his son invited me to come see him perform. Now, I had no idea I was going to meet Eddie Van Halen. But I get there and Wolf's like, hey, man, come into the dressing room. Well, I walk in and there is my childhood hero, Eddie Van Halen. And Wolf goes, Dad, look who it is. And he goes, oh man, hey, scream Lily for me. And I'm like, like, oh my God, Dalen just asked me to do what I do. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, that's a common one I get, Lily and Stella.
What's the funniest thing that happened on the set? Modern Family. In 10 years, there must have been something that really...
Well, 11 years. It's so hard to pinpoint anything. I mean, I was a bit of a prankster with people, but I had to stop pranking people because everybody was like had kids or were busy, so nobody ever pranked me back. So then I'm like just a bully pranking people. I had to stop. But I messed with Jesse quite a bit. You know, I did every, sort of prank you could with Jesse. And that he's better at telling those stories than I am about getting him. But here's the thing. Again, the makeup of the show, it's this engine, right? Everything needs to function and click to make it last 11 years and then to make it good. One of the things that has to be happening is fun. It has to be fun. Everybody has to go enjoy, because as hard as this is for people to hear, eventually everything becomes work. Sure, we're paid handsomely. Sure, it's glitzy and glamorous. Sure, we're going to fancy award shows. But at the end of the day, sometimes you're someplace where you'd rather not be. Might rather be in Hawaii, or you might rather be at your friend's birthday party, or you might rather be at a funeral that you can't go to because you have work. So my point is that it becomes work. And there's no way our show would have been great if the fun still didn't exist in those moments. It never felt like work.
All right. You could be anywhere in Chicago right now doing anything. Where are you?
Oh, man. So many good answers, or so many answers to that. Depending on how I'm feeling, when I needed just some time, I'd sit at a specific park bench in Lincoln Park and watch the gibbons and watch kids walk by. And there was one gibbon that would draw people up to the cage. And when they get a big enough crowd, he'd start peeing all over them. I loved sitting in Lincoln Park at the zoo and people watching the squirrels. Those are more introspective things. It's hard to not go right to food for me. I did a sketch at my Level 5 Second City where I was a Gray Line tour guide. And so I had my back to the audience. So then I turned around like I was driving the bus, and it'd be like, coming up next, we got the Wrigley Building, but right next to it is Ann Sather's, home of the 5-pound cinnamon roll. So the tour was like, the building and the thing was like one thing, but what restaurant was next to the thing was what the emphasis of my tour was. Mr. Beef, I mean, Toronto bread, I'll tell you, two places I would be is the Vienna Beef Factory Outlet. That was a stop when my dad came down. We'd always go down and have a hot dog there. Toronto bread, I reached out to Toronto bread because their owner does this great segment on Instagram where he goes and has lunch. And I said, when I'm in Chicago, I want to go have lunch with Mario. And they're like, please come. So some restaurant eating some kind of meat stuffed in some kind of Toronto bread is way up there for me.
Did you watch The Bear?
I never got into the Bear. I was kind of because of that. I'm not a huge TV watcher. I mean, I watch news and other things, but I know it's good. People give it trouble because it's a comedy, and apparently, I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy. Yeah, but the great views of the city. What does Chicago mean to you, Eric?
Oh, well, it means so much to me in my career. It meant a tremendous amount when I was there because I was learning that I could be an actor. It taught me that I can do this, right? I went there to find out if I could, and I found out that I could. So I moved to LA. But then leaving there, it meant so much because I met so many of my close friends and so many people that I admire and respect so much that also came from Chicago. I remember being in Chicago and watching people get lost on the subway, right? Or need help, and watching people give people directions. I have this very vivid memory of being there in this family, guy in a plaid Wrangler shirt, Wrangler jeans, clearly from the country, right? With his family, and they've got their map out, and I'm sitting on the L, and I don't know the city yet, like I should, and they're lost, and they ask somebody, and the guy like stood over with his map, showed him where he was going. He's like, you know what? No, come on. It's like, I'm getting off at the next stop and I can walk to the next stop. Walked off the L train and walked this family to where they were going and then just walked to his next stop. And that, there's a reason I remember that, right? And that's an example that I tried to live up to once I did know the city is treat people with so much respect and kindness in Chicago, because I saw people do that. But man, a friend of mine I just saw on Facebook, he moved from Los Angeles back to Chicago, and I sent him a text. It's just 2 days ago. And I said, man, it makes me so happy to know you're back in Chicago, and you have to be so thrilled to be back there. And he's like, dude, I can't believe I'm back here. Every time I drive up Lakeshore Drive, I still get the chills. And it's like, that's Chicago right there. Just getting on Lakeshore Drive and heading down to the city and then coming back, just that view coming up that way. I'd get off at I'd get off at Addison. There's an Addison. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I lived at Broadway in Addison. But,
listen to it. You can hear it behind me. The city is just alive. The construction, the sirens,
sounds, the noises. And, look, I'd never been to New York City until I was on Modern Family. I lived in Chicago, I lived in LA, and then I got to go to New York City. And New York's great. There's, fine, whatever. It does not compare to Chicago. Now, what I have learned is when I moved to Chicago from Manhattan, Kansas, like, oh my God, this is such a huge city, right? Then you go to LA, then you go to New York, and then you come back to Chicago and you're like, oh, this is a quaint little town. This is a nice little spot, which I think is its allure. It is a big city with that sort of feel.
Yeah. Listen, you have been a great spokesperson for the city and a perfect guest for this podcast. And I know you have plenty of demands on your time. So I appreciate you making some time for us. And we'll look forward to...
Wait, what affiliate are you do the news for?
CBS.
Dude, do I have a story for you?
Okay, what do you got?
Tim Weigel. He was the sportscaster in Chicago.
Always wore the crazy sport coats, right?
Yes. But he was the sportscaster on the CBS affiliate with Lester Holmes when I lived in Chicago. Okay?
Lester Holt?
Holt, yeah, Lester Holt.
Yeah.
So the first job I got in Chicago was I was a spokesperson for Northwestern University season ticket football, meaning they'd just gone to the Rose Bowl. I went and auditioned for this crazy purple guy. You can find the commercials on TV with me and Gary Barnett in front of Harry Carey's, right?
Okay.
So I'm doing these commercials, and then they start to get on the air and they're playing and blah, blah, blah. Well, again, one morning my phone rings and I don't have a lot of people calling me in Chicago. I answer and I said, hello. And he goes, is this the purple guy? And I said, yes. He goes, Tim Weigel. I'm like, what? My sports guy? He's like, yeah. Hey, would you meet me somewhere? I want to interview you. So I met him at the McDonald's across from Wrigley Field at Clark and Addison in the middle of winter and did an interview with Tim Weigel about my Purple Guy campaign.
Uh-huh.
I have that tape somewhere, but there's an example of getting confidence, right? I was doing these dumb commercials in Chicago and somebody wanted to interview me about them. And that's...
Were you dressed up? Or did you have purple? What?
Yeah, I was painted purple from head to toe. And then that campaign turned into a national campaign for all of college football. So I went from doing it for Northwestern University to the NCAA, seeing that and being like, well, that's a good idea. So then I became Joe Football for all of the NCAA the next year. But it started there in Chicago as the Purple Guy.
Wow, I need to look that up. Well, the stories have been great, Eric. Again, I appreciate the time. And I'm just hoping that, A, I see you on Dexter Resurrection next season, and B, you don't end up on his table.
That's going to be hard to not do. I'll have to get with the writers on that one.
Eric, thanks again.
Got it. Thank you.
My thanks to Eric. As you heard, he can say yes or no to pretty much whatever he wants, and it means a lot that he said yes to joining me. Brian Griggs with Brian Griggs Productions does all our audio editing. Chicago vibraphonist Thaddeus Tukes came up with the original theme music. And my thanks to Bill Curtis for lending his legendary voice to the introduction each episode. I'm Joe Donlin. I will see you on CBS News Chicago. It's available everywhere on the CBS News app. And as always, I thank you for listening to Chicago Unscripted.